North Pole, where we're going to be shooting an episode of ASMR in our best possible timeline. I will be your reader this evening. I'm Santa, obviously. And in case you doubt me, I have a mug to prove it. See, Santa's mug. I know I'm younger and cuter than you were expecting. That's like a common misconception. A rumor started by my sister, Grumpus. Today we're going to do a story time. I'm going to be reading to you A Dog's Night Before Christmas. So, without further ado, let's get started. And to help us read today our A Dog's Night Before Christmas, we have the star of the show, Santa's little helper, also known as Jacques Cousteau. A Dog's Night Before Christmas. Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, except for a mouse. I awoke with a start from the deepest of sleeps, my slumber disturbed by shrill little peeps. From the ruckus it kicked up in its tiny nest, the rodent was hosting a holiday fest. But mice aren't my problem, that's work for the cat, though I'd tear it to pieces if it were a rat. 'Tis a subtle distinction no human quite gets, a division of labor among household pets. 'Tis why parrots won't fetch things, and goldfish don't talk, and hamsters don't beg to go out for a walk. And the reason was always the job for the pooch, to ransack the household for goodies to mooch. So off through the place I went busily nosing, while snug under duvets the family was dozing, thanks to false accusation that yours truly sheds, and that frame up for flea bites I'm banished from beds. From the mantel hung stockings I'd happily chew up, but that seemed to me like a serious screw-up, as bad as the time when from sheer force of habit I happened to nibble the neighbor's pet rabbit. I confess I was tempted to go help myself to the plateful of cookies they'd left on the shelf, but I wasn't too eager to get into touch for some measly fig Newtons. I don't like that much. At the front of the parlor, they'd set up a spruce, a nice place to be, though I doubt that's its use. They laugh when they see me retrieving a stick, then they drag home a tree with a trunk a foot thick. They draped it with doodads and tinsel in swirls. I'd have liked it much more if they kept a few squirrels, and instead of the boxes piled up at its base, 'twere a couple of pigeons a puppy could chase. I sniffed through the kitchen in search of a treat, a a tidbit of cheese or a morsel of meat. But any choice scraps had been swept from the floor, and the garbage was bagged up outside the back door. What about that? You missed that. As all round the room I continued to prowl, I spied on the counter a huge frozen fowl. They said 'tis a bird, but that thing's never flown, and in that whole hoke there's not one decent bone. If you want my opinion, I'd say lose the turkey. Let's have bacon and pizza and lots of beef jerky and cupcakes and popcorn and apple brown Betty and a nice heaping plateful of day-old spaghetti. Some meatballs and tacos and slices of brisket, chop suey and chili and gravy-soaked brisket and donuts and dumplings and hot dogs and ham, a big bag of jelly beans, a whole leg of lamb. But you can't dine on dreams, so I'd nothing to nibble, aside from some bites of that horrible kibble. I was searching the sofa for any lost toys when I heard from high on the housetop a noise. A burglar, a goblin, a rabid raccoon, a bug-eyed space monster from Mars or the moon, a flesh-eating zombie, a goon with a gun, a bloodthirsty psycho, a con on the run. With my heart in my mouth, I crept to the attic. Confronting a foe can be very traumatic. I tiptoed to the dormer and peered through the casement. I was ready to fight or to head to the basement. Then I saw such a scene in the snow on the roof that for once I was truly too tongue-tied to woo. Kitty corner, there salooned a sled drawn by pusses, a tabby toboggan performing death shoes. And perched in the rear of the cat sled there sat a stout Saint Bernard in a trim alpine hat, with a pipe in his mouth and a case on his collar. He reined in his mousers, and I heard him holler, "Whoa, Misty, whoa, Smoky, whoa, Nosy and Chloe, whoa, Gypsy and Frisky and Whiskey and Zoe, whoa, Molly and Polly and Muffins and Fluffy, whoa, Dusty and Rusty and Ruffles and Scruffy." I was starting to think this must be Santa Claus when he tapped on the floorboards with one of his paws, and a pack of chihuahuas jumped out of the back, and each of them carried a fat gunny sack. They yipped and they yapped and they mounted the slope. They climbed into the chimney and tossed in a rope. They shined their way to the top of the flue and hopped in the vent hole and vanished from view. I dashed downstairs and raced through the hall. I rushed to the fireplace there by the wall. They'd laid out a banquet, a full groaning board, a scrumptious buffet, mastiff before he took flight. Then as he ascended, he waved from his seat. Merry Christmas, he yodeled, and bon appetit.